Well, hello friends. Welcome to the SerenityOS update for April 2021. Now, before we begin, let me tell you about sponsorship. So, the Serenity operating system and all of my content about it is always going to be free and open source. But if you would like to support my work and maybe one day make it possible for me to do this full-time, then there are 3 donation options. So I'm on GitHub Sponsors and Patreon for those interested in making a monthly contribution, and I'm also on PayPal if you prefer making a one-time contribution. And of course, thank you to everybody who is already supporting me in some way, and a warm welcome to all the new supporters who have signed up in the last month. There's been another large increase this month in support, and I am super excited about that, so thank you all very much. Okay, so let's talk about April, because April has been intense, to say the least. We decided to open a Discord server for the project this month, and I was not prepared for just the monumental amount of interest that people had. And it's been open for about 3 weeks now, and we have over 1,400 members already, which is 10 times as many people as we ever had in the IRC channel, more or less. And naturally, once all of these people got to talking with each other on Discord, then this led to a ton of new development projects all at once. And long story short, we have been merging over 15 pull requests per day for the month of April. So there's just been a ridiculous amount of stuff going in. And in the face of this pressure, it became very clear that I can no longer manage merging all these pull requests by myself. So I'm very happy to report that I've appointed Linus Gro as the very first SerenityOS project reviewer. And in practical terms, that means Linus now has write access to the repository and is able to merge pull requests. And Linus has been doing an absolutely amazing job so far on all this stuff. So a warm welcome to Linus, and thank you very much for all of your awesome work. Anyway, let's look at some new stuff, right? So first thing you'll notice, perhaps, is that we have a new system logo. It was designed by Katalin, who made this cool ladyball logo, and I quite like it, so we went with it right away. And let's see, where do we start? Some new stuff in the GUI. We have Alt shortcuts in menus now. You'll see these underlined characters here, so it means I can press Alt F and it opens the file menu. And we also have underlined characters here within menus, which allow you to jump to an option and activate it from the keyboard. So that's something I wanted for a very long time, and I'm glad we finally got around to doing that. Another thing related to menus is that when you hover over a menu item now, there's a status tip shown down here in the status bar. So as you can see, it says like new, open an existing file, save, and so on. So this is just a way that you can provide sort of a longer description of what a menu action does, and it works both for menu items and for toolbar actions. You can see that this also shows in the status bar. I think that's quite neat. And another thing that I also worked on was refining this file picker stuff. So we now have this kind of Windows 2000 inspired look for the left-hand side here with the common locations. And I think it was Dex who went and made the locations configurable as well, so that it's not hard-coded where you can go. And I notice now that if we if we click on this one, then the bold text is too large and it dots it. That's something that we should fix, definitely. But I'm very happy with the visual appearance of this common locations tray over here. So, oh, and while I'm on the topic of menus and stuff like that, I've gone and applied book title capitalization to all the menus and tooltips in the system, hopefully. because previously we were not consistent about this. Some of the menus had like regular sentence capitalization and some of them were book title case. Now it's all book title case. So you can see here like wrap at words. It's kind of a subtle thing, but I feel like this type of stuff is what makes a system feel polished versus less polished. So anyway, just something I care about. And something that I don't know if we've ever actually looked at this in a monthly update, but the text editor actually has a Vim emulation mode where we support basic Vim stuff. You can, navigate with W and B and stuff like that, and has all the typical Vim stuff. And this month, Agni has been doing Vim motions. So now, like WWBB, I can also do things like 2W to move 2 words ahead and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool by Agni. And I noticed that there are a bunch of things that don't support motions yet, but we have to start somewhere. So anyway, let's look at File Manager. So I built a thing that allows you to do recursive copies out of process. And for example, if we take the user include directory here, just drag it to the desktop, we now get this window that pops up and shows progress, even has a time estimate and everything, a little animation. I did the original implementation of that, and then Leandro worked on improving it, adding time estimates, animating cool animation, stuff like that. And I think it turned out really good. So the architecture is that File Manager actually spawns a helper program that does the copy operation outside. But we still need to work on the delete operation. But yeah, so it runs the copy operation out of process, which allows the File Manager to remain responsive. So this is something that I always feel like it took other systems so long to get a good responsiveness experience when it comes to file operations, and that's something I really want us to be good at. So I think it's good to spend some time on that. Anyway, let's look at Font Editor. Font Editor received a lot of love this month, so Thank You Very Cool has worked on this a whole bunch. Really spruced up the UI, added a toolbar and a lot of interesting functionality, and the UI is now kind of responsive almost. And if we scroll here, we can see that a bunch of new glyphs are showing up in our fonts. So this month, Dimitri added support for Cyrillic in our font system, and Idan added support for Hebrew. And Idan also did right to left text rendering. And I mean, that's still a big area with a lot of open questions, but we do have some rudimentary initial support for Hebrew text rendering from right to left, which is really cool. So both Dimitri and Idan have shown that they're able to load google.com and get the localized version where they are, and it actually renders like correctly in their language. So really cool stuff. And I think Thank You Very Cool, by the way, did a new font. It's called Marietta. It looks like this. Very cool. So Thank You Very Cool. Thank you Very Cool. Very cool. I have to say that every time because it's just amusing to me. Anyway. Then I did a bunch of work on System Monitor. So now the main UI here is kind of simplified. We don't show this overwhelming amount of information by default, but you can actually still add it in the menu if you want to see more things here. But instead now, if you want to learn more about a process, you can go and open up a process window. And in here, you'll find a detailed breakdown of all of the current state of this program as far as the kernel is concerned. And you'll also find the memory map, open files, paths, stuff like that. And of course, current execution stack. And these are updating live. So one thing that we couldn't do before was look at multiple processes at the same time, which we can now because they open into separate windows. So that was sort of part of the motivation why I wanted to do this, just so you could have two open to compare. Okay. And oh, and just a small detail. So kernel processes are now marked with a little asterisk here, and they also have this gear icon in the list, so that allows you to spot them more easily than you could before when they just look like any other process. Okay. So in the browser this month, there has been so much work. So let's start with ACID 2, because Yegor has been doing a ton of awesome work on ACID 2 compliance, just going through the test and fixing all these CSS box model issues one by one by painstakingly reading the spec and implementing the behavior and correcting the thing that we were doing wrong. And we are definitely in a much better place today than we were a month ago. But obviously there's also still a long way to go, but it is very exciting. And then some other stuff we have user agent spoofing. I think it was Idan who added this. So we can now select like Chrome Linux desktop, and then we will pretend to be Chrome Linux desktop when talking to web servers. And you actually see the full user agent down there as a status tip, so that you know what you're selecting. And this, I think this was originally added to start working on Twitter support, because when we send our SerenityOS browser user agent to Twitter, they just say, you don't get Twitter. You're not going to be able to understand it anyway. So they just send us some error page, so we have to fake. But it's a really useful feature regardless. And other stuff is we have started working on WebSocket support. So this is Dex primarily who's been working on this. And here on this test page, we connect to echo.websocket.org, which is just a test server. And it doesn't quite disconnect cleanly yet, but it is quite exciting that we have an initial implementation of this stuff coming up. And part of this goes back to how we created the Discord server, and then of course now we want to be able to connect to Discord from inside Serenity. So we started looking at, well, what do we need to support in the browser to do that? And this was one of many things that came up. So awesome work by Dex, just getting it this far. And then Tim has been doing a ton of work this month on various browser things. One of the big things he's been working on is cookie support. So we now have, they're not persistent, but they are sort of session bound cookies or whatever. They go away when you close the browser, but we do have initial support for cookies. And we also have, for security purposes, parsing of cookies in the isolated web process, and then they're passed over to the browser process for storage. It's quite a nice architecture. A lot of good work by Tim that has gone into this. And Tim has also worked on a bunch of other things like label elements and background repeat and stuff like that. Actually, yeah, we can see here we have a test for background repeat. Just all around cool stuff. There have been so many people picking up the browser recently and working on the internals of it, and that just makes me really happy. Especially since I made a video a while ago talking about how browser hacking has been going over the last year, and how happy I am when new people pick up the browser, because it sort of shows me that this isn't something that people can't just pick up and learn. Because that was something I was originally worried about when starting a browser, that people would be intimidated by the complexity of it or whatever. So super awesome to have new people working on the browser. And I'll show you something I did for the browser this month, which was when you use the JavaScript console and you dump an object here, then you now see the name of the object. So previously we only showed these two curly braces for an object, so it was very hard to understand what you were actually looking at. So now that's a bit better. And oh, actually, another thing that I did here was if you do something like get elements by tag name, get all the anchor tags, now you get an HTML collection. Previously, we would just give you an array, like a JavaScript array of DOM nodes, but now we have basic support for HTML collection, which is a strange legacy API that gives you sort of a live view of a DOM with a filter. And it's quite complex, but it's something that we need to support because tons of web content uses it. So I finally bit the bullet and started working on that. And then on the JavaScript side of things, new this month is promises. So that's something that Linus has been working on for like a year, I think. And we finally got it merged in, and it's working, so that's super cool. And all kinds of random improvements all around the place by Linus. And one thing that he did in particular that I really love is that he has improved the error messages that you get when you go to a web page and then it tries to access a property that we haven't implemented on some object. That used to be this extremely opaque error where like it would just say, this is something useless. I don't even remember what it would say anymore. And now it actually tells you what kind of property it's trying to access, what is the name of it. And that has been massively helpful for understanding why some web page doesn't load. And a bunch of people have worked on JavaScript this month, and there have also been a lot of compliance fixes for the regex engine. So Ali and I forget who else was working on that, but it's so cool that every month there's like, I feel like there's maybe 100 just spec compliance fixes that go into various parts of the system. So even if something new isn't added, like new features, we still go and make them better, if that makes sense. I like seeing that people care about it to that extent that they go and they do spec compliance work as well. So thank you everybody for doing spec compliance work. Oh, and we had this problem with the JS parser that sometimes in the presence of, I think it was arrow functions, it would have this pathological behavior where it would just go really, really slow trying to parse arrow functions. And Stefan added some memoization of parser state that allows us to quickly get out of that bad state. So that was really cool. In practical terms, that means that we no longer hang parsing some content. Anyway, let's look at something else. So how about Hack Studio? So we'll just start Hack Studio and make a new project. Let's see, make a command line app. We'll call it monthly for the monthly video. So some new cool stuff in Hack Studio this month is the class view by Itamar. So here, if I go and I add a new struct, you can see on the left-hand side that this is a live view of classes and structs in the program. So I can go here and add a member bar, and it shows up right under here. If I click on it, it goes to where that thing is defined. And here we can see some stuff from Stdio that has been pulled in, and seems a little bit confused about some things, but but it does work for our own stuff so far. The C++ parser it's such awesome work, I think, and Itamar is just doing great work with that stuff, and he's building this whole world here of C++ comprehension into our IDE, and I just love to see it. So let me show you something cool. So let's say that we make a new function here, like we'll call it func. We'll take an argument, and then we will make one of those foo objects that we had above. We'll set bar to we'll set it to arg maybe, and then we'll print it out. And let's put a breakpoint on the printf. So now, oh wait, I need to call it also. So we'll call that with 99. Am I failing to build this now? I am not doing this right. Monthly. Okay, something was not going right here with the rebuild. Wait, what am I doing wrong? Okay, now I am confused. Oh wait, is it? Is it not saving the file? Is that the problem, that I'm just not saving? Oh my goodness. Okay, I thought I was saving and I was pressing the wrong keyboard shortcut. Anyway, back on track. So now we have paused execution here because I made a breakpoint, right? So down here we can see this stack frame. We're in func. This is our stack trace right here. We can look into any of the frames that we like. And Hack Studio Debugger is pretty cool, actually. And a new feature this month that was implemented by Hunter is evaluate expression. So if we open that up, we get a JavaScript console, actually. So here I can type expressions, and these are parsed into JavaScript expressions and executed by libjs. And then we take the execution context of the C++ program, turn it into JavaScript objects so that we can look into them. This is really, really cool, actually. So if I type foo, you can see that it is a foo object, but it's actually a foo object that we've synthesized based on our knowledge of the C++ program. And yeah, you can see the bar is 99 here. So, and I can then do things like bar plus 2, 101. Fascinating stuff. I don't know exactly where we're going to go with this feature, but I love just the joyful experimentation that led to the creation of it, and I think it's really interesting to see what we can do with this type of thing. So super awesome work by Hunter, and yeah, let's look at something else, I guess. So something that's really not fleshed out much yet, but has been started on, is a SQL database engine. So this is something Tim has been working on. And I think really so far it's just a SQL parser. So foo, I don't know, bar char. So it doesn't actually execute these queries, it just parses them. And the syntax highlighting is actually a nice indication that it's parsing correctly, because if I do something bleh, then you can see here that there's actually a parser that knows what it should look for and stuff. And I think there are a lot of things that we need a SQL database for in the system, various browser features, and probably all kinds of things. Once we have a relational database, we'll discover that we can use it for this and that. So pretty cool stuff, and I'm happy that Tim has started working on it, just doing a ton of work on the parser already. Okay, now let's look at profiling. So if we grab a profile of the whole system, let me just do that, and I'll start the browser maybe, resize it a little bit, load asset 2, why not? Close that and stop profiling. And then let me open this whole system profile. So Gunnar has been doing a bunch of work improving the way our profiling system works. I don't need to really describe how it did work, but now the way it does work is that a profile is now an event log, which keeps track of a lot of things that we were not tracking properly before. So now we record process creation, process destruction, thread creation, destruction, memory mapping and unmapping events. And by recording everything that happens in the system, we're able to reconstruct things like what was the exact memory layout of this program at this point in time. Because we have a recording that allows us to sort of replay all the events. That's something that we could not do before. And this has made the profiler a lot more accurate and a lot more capable. And we've only begun to exploit the capabilities that this offers. But one thing here is that we now have a process filter in the profiler. So I can select that I only care about the web content process here. And that means that I will only see what the web content process is doing. And it appears that it was doing something terrible because I have crashed the system by opening it. So let's see if we can do a reboot maybe. Reset. All right. Well, I don't know if that happened in a monthly update video before, but it did today. Anyway, let's keep going. So obviously the profiler still has some kinks to work out, but I am excited about the direction, and I'm really glad to have the new log format, because that just, it's so much more robust in theory than what we had before. So thank you, Gunnar, for working on that. And Gunnar has been doing a whole ton of things this month. Some of the stuff is he did DL Open, so we now support loading libraries at runtime, which is really awesome because that means that you can dynamically load a program after you've started. He's implemented POSIX semaphores in our pthread library. He does tons of random POSIX compliance fixes just all over the system libraries. It's super cool. And also in the kernel, a bunch of stuff. And Gunnar has also brought us on to GCC 11, which came out. That was really cool because it came out, and then 2 days later, Gunnar had all the patches moving Serenity to GCC 11. And that included adding support for the Dwarf version 5 debugging debug symbol format, which they moved to in GCC 11. So super thanks to Gunnar for all of your work on that stuff. It's really awesome that we can be on the latest version of GCC so quickly, because that now gives us access to all kinds of new C++ language features, which we also need to start looking into. Very exciting. In the kernel land, there have been a couple of things, some work on hardware support, some improvements to hard drive stuff. Something I worked on was metadata validation for kernel heap allocations. So we now have basic validation of metadata and double free detection in the kernel allocator. And then Edun made a red-black tree for the address space layout. Previously, we would store address space layouts in a linear vector type thing, and now we use a red-black tree instead, which has a lot of favorable properties, especially when it comes to handling page faults, because previously we would have this linear time scan looking for the relevant region that you're faulting in. Now I guess it runs in O-log-n time. So it's nice. And something else that's really cool is in kernel space is that work has begun on hardening the kernel system calls against low memory conditions. So Brian and Sahan have been working on that. I think one big thing that they're doing is that they're taking all of our vector use, like our C++ vector use in the kernel, and verifying that allocations succeed before proceeding. So if you append something to a vector in kernel space, we're now able to propagate an out-of-memory error from that. So it's really nice to see that stuff starting to happen, because the kernel has historically been quite bad at handling out-of-memory conditions. So definitely nice with some progress. A random kernel thing I did also was adding a magical key combination. It's Alt-Shift-F12, I think, which you don't see anything if I press it here, but if you are connected to the debugging console, you get a state dump of the kernel scheduler. So this is just something that's really nice. If the system is hung, then you can just get a state dump. So previously when we were hung in the profiler, I could actually get a dump and look at it later, what was going on. And something we didn't talk about at all yet is ports. So there have been just a gigantic number of ports this month. Really too many that I don't remember all of them, but some highlights I think were like libvorbis, Prince of Persia, the game. We have a COBOL compiler. I think GNU PG for like encryption. NetHack is in. OpenTTD, a bunch of people asked about that. We now have an OpenTTD port. We have FFmpeg, and and one that I wanted to show you actually is Quake 2. We now have a port of Quake 2 to Serenity, and this was done by Jesse, who also did the Quake 1 port, I think over a year ago now. So it's pretty cool that he came back and did a Quake 2 port sometime later. And I guess that means that he has to do a Quake 3 port 1 year from today. So please do that, Jesse. That would be awesome. Anyway, to everybody who has been adding ports, like Gunnar, Holden, Jesse, Tom, Brendan, Arthur, Manuel, Alex, other people. I don't remember everybody who added ports, but thank you all for adding ports. It's really fun, and I'm glad that the system is becoming more and more capable of just having random third-party software run on it. That's super fun, super cool. Yeah, I think that's everything I had in mind to show you today. There have been hundreds of more things that went in this month, but I have to draw the line somewhere, because otherwise this will just go on forever. Thank you all so much for checking in and staying up to date with the project. It's been quite stressful for me personally this month because of all of the just all the activity, all the people, and I've had a bit of a hard time adjusting to it, but it is getting a lot better, and it's getting easier also, especially with the addition of Linus to help out with merging and everything. So I'm mostly getting back on track, but for a while there, to be honest, it was difficult to to handle all of the activity. But now I'm pretty much back to feeling awesome and excited about all of the interest and activities. So it's really fun to see so many people enjoying themselves developing on the system, with the system, for the system. So yeah, if you want to come chat with us, just join the Discord server. I'll put a link to it in the video description. Come say hi and see what all the people are up to. There's so much activity, and there should be something that interests just about anybody. So anyway, that's it for this month. Thank you all very much, and I will see you next time. Bye.